environmental students, today we're going to be talking about the application section. Thanks IB for providing exemplars that are both positive and negative based on moderator views for us to analyze more in depth. Let's get started. So this application section is 3 points overall on the total IA. Let's learn about the expectations. So the first aspect says justify one potential application or solution to the environmental issue you originally discussed in your context background section and connect it to that findings that you have actually in your research. So we're going to be kind of multitasking both our results from our research, our background knowledge from the context to come up with this one potential application or solution. So we're going to kind of hit that really strong exemplar that was on tropospheric ozone, and I would really recommend you pause and read over this. The whole example of that exemplar IA is available on our class website, but for now, pause, and I'm going to also highlight some key things. So again, remember, at least one potential application or solution. Their findings, though, in that tropospheric ozone example were that more cars were more ozone in the troposphere, which is not good. It's a bad pollutant. So what they're going to be talking about is very much related to pollution management ideas, and those are going to be lots of my hints here. So let's kind of look at it more closely. So notice as you pause and read that the major applications and solutions that are initially noted here at the beginning first paragraph of this overall section of the IA are mostly starting at the national level for a solution and then some more potentially local level solutions. So when you do come up with this, think about, is this regional, local, or is it national? Is it a global strategy? I would highly recommend you keep it on the national to local level because that's going to be specific to your issue or context. So here, this is as large as probably they want to get, although they could compare to a international case study. So the US EPA has this information about air pollution, and then they start giving this idea that regulation should be market-based or volunteer programs. This is an argument for the writer in this example for the following solution they start discussing. So they start saying, okay, I think that community change is going to be the best, probably, all right? And so they say it's difficult to find a solution, right? And so they're going to say community initiatives, local government incentives are probably going to work best. Specifically, the regulation they're going to say is a technology regulation that is limiting the primary pollutant NOx, which we'll learn in air pollution unit, is what's going to end up becoming a tropospheric ozone. So by limiting this, I therefore am limiting tropospheric ozone and the problem that they find within their IA case study results. So that moving forward leads them to kind of having this local government regulation of technology called catalytic converters as an initial application or solution. But they start to evaluate it later, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. Other things that they start to suggest are that they suggest these ozone days, all right, which could encourage people to drive less. They also say educational tips, so both education and both tips and volunteer work, offering financial subsidies. All of these are really good regulations and replacement ideas that are highly specific to their context that are backed up. And so not only do you have to have these solutions that are well described and justified, because they are justifying this throughout, you then also have to, for full points, evaluate. So before we move on to evaluation, my first helpful tip is to use our old school pollution management diagram, which hopefully you're now remembering throughout the year, which is our reduce, regulate, restore. And there's so many good ideas to think about for you to come up with your different solutions, but you have to make them context specific. Notice they didn't just say come up with a technology in the previous example, they said catalytic converters. They didn't just say education, they said leaflets about blank. So you have to be specific to get the point, but I do recommend you talking about at least 2 different levels within your discussion. All right, but not all solutions are perfect. to get the full points on your application section, you also have to evaluate all your solutions. So throughout the things we were just saying, interspersed, there were also these evaluations. So as they were talking about solutions, they were saying local community change is really hard. There's no single solution. Those are talking about that it's really hard. People have different value systems. It's really hard to change people's lifestyles. Those things are really tough, so having some sort of incentives are going to work best. So they are talking about why things are difficult to do or implement. They also are going to talk about enforcement challenges, that if we're going to have things like those catalytic converters, it's really hard unless there's going to be economic consequences, such as if you don't have that technology in your car, you're going to get fined. This extra piece is how they're getting the full points. So make sure you're not only just being specific, but you're being specific and discussing it through evaluating pros and cons. Furthermore, they then talk about how they want the local government to be publishing all that educational stuff. Well, why do they want to do that? Well, they think it'll be really positive because the first level of pollution management is the strongest to actually get local residents to act. So all of these are evaluations, and that is how you get full credit. And this person did get full credit. They were super organized. They had lots of good ideas, but they justified and evaluated them. So to encourage you to be good about this evaluation, there's that pollution management diagram again, and now I have encolored the part of that are pros and cons. So that first level, again, remember, reducing the pollutant in the first place is the most fundamental to actually fixing the pollution or whatever the problem is, but remember, it's going to have lifestyle and value problems. That middle one, regulation, that's not completely stopping the pollutant in the first place. There is regulation gridlock. We know in the U.S., Congress and Senate are very unlikely to always agree on stuff. Things are really expensive to make a new technology. And then lastly, if I have the pollution all the way making it out into the environment, I now are having damage to my ecosystem. It's time and money, and it could be too late for the ecosystem to bounce back. It might no longer be resilient. And I've had such a positive feedback loop that I am in unstable equilibrium, and it'll be really tough. So these are evaluations, but you must make it specific to your context. So you couldn't just say gridlock. You would need to talk more about it. You couldn't just say technology. You would need to say why it's expensive. What about it? What's the specific technology? All right? So other tips, here's another example, although this example did not get full marks. This example is also available on our website. You can pause and read it. This person wasn't being as holistic as they could have been. The moderator says they could talk about economics as more thoroughly, so they start talking about it here, but they are really pushing them to think in more depth about it and to be much more specific. So to help you with that, I would really recommend reminding yourself to use IB environmental terms. For instance, this integrated pest management is a specific term that might come up in class, but similarly, with those specific terms, like commercial farming, integrated pest management, I highly recommend, if you have a good case study that you found in your background research, integrating that into here as a good example or justification for why you want to do what you're talking about, because that will make your case a lot stronger in the application. So as you talk about your case studies, make sure they're named, that they're cited, and not only that, you discuss, is this an MEDC or an LADC? What are their value systems and why? But remember, as we move towards the end of the IA, we're also moving towards making sure we're coherent, we're clear, and that we're not being too wordy. And that will be our last section coming up, which is the communication section. So don't go overboard either. All right, wonderful job. That's the application section. Pause, go back, hopefully took down some ideas. All right, good luck, guys.